Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to come on here. I know it's been a minute. Got a new job, so yeah, all the things that go with getting a new job. So basically starting over from scratch, and it's okay. It needed to be done, so it's all good. So anyways, I was watching the Sean Ryan show the other day. Shout out to Sean Ryan. Great YouTube channel, great podcast. One of the best on YouTube by far. And he was talking about kind of the two different worlds that kind of exist. The world that he knows and remembers and grew up in, and the world that we're in today. I think a lot of it had to do with a lot of the laws that they're passing now, allowing adults and minors, that they're lowering the age of consent. That California is leaving it up to judges to determine whether somebody is a pedophile or will be accused of a crime if they sleep with somebody that's 14 years or older. It's up to them to decide whether it's a criminal act or not. Obviously, in most states, that's a felony. I know some states have passed a law that says it's now a misdemeanor. They're trying to lower the age of consent because they feel that children can make decisions on their own, which of course I totally disagree with. Children cannot. They don't have the experience, the life experience, to make those type of decisions. I think it was in Washington State where the government intervened because the parent wouldn't allow an 8-year-old to have a sex change. An 8-year-old doesn't know what he or she wants. They're not capable of understanding what a sex change does to a person. Puberty blockers, it's almost an irreversible thing. So we live in a world that's getting more and more evil, and when now you have people who feel that you can do whatever you want at any age, then we're running into real problems. When children are now victims of our idiocy as adults, then we really have problems. California definitely is one of the worst states to not only live in but be a part of, unless you agree with sleeping with minors and you agree with pedophilia. If you do, then you live in California, because pretty soon it's going to get worse. This is only the start of what's to come, and it's always a slippery slope. Always. Don't get me wrong, I'm from California. I'm a California born and raised. It's still a beautiful state with tons of stuff to nature to look at. It's fantastic. But when it comes to living there and the government, I don't know how people live there. I don't know how people do it, but obviously there are people that agree with the policies of the governor, and they don't have a problem with people having sex with minors. I guess they don't, because they don't pass a law. And I don't get it. Children should be protected at all costs. This is the future of the species. And I don't understand how it's two different worlds. Literally, it's two different worlds. When almost 50% of the country don't have any issues with it, we're in trouble. We're in real trouble. And obviously there's a spiritual component to this, obviously. And it's not so much laws and whatnot that are the real problem. Obviously, sin is the real problem. obviously. From a spiritual perspective, it's sin is the problem. It's the root of everything. There's not a whole lot that disputes that. But looking at it from a non-religious standpoint, a non-biblical standpoint. Let me stop using that word religious, because in all honesty, religion is what is part of the problem. So a non-biblical perspective. And I don't necessarily look at it from a non-biblical perspective, but I know some people that watch this channel don't look at it from that perspective. So I had to bring from both perspectives. And in so doing, in so doing, that we have to look at the two different worlds we're talking about. There's the two different worlds that's portrayed in the media, that's portrayed by the liberals in this country. And it doesn't necessarily have to be liberals per se, but that the policies that are going forward are mainly liberal policies. So that's why I say what I say. Obviously, there are extremes on both sides. Both of them are wrong. But nevertheless, that's what's happening. As I explained in another video that I've done, the minorities are dictating the policy to the majorities, and that's not the way our government works. That's not the way it's supposed to work. Minority has representation, but majority always rules. That's just the way it is. So I think that Sean Ryan's take on it, which really brought him to a depressive state, I get it. I get it, because there's just a lot going on, and it just seems like it's out of control, and there's nothing that the normal, common person can do about it. And you feel helpless. Now, from a spiritual perspective, we're supposed to give it to God and let God deal with it. And that we're not supposed to be, quote unquote, conformed to this world, but transformed by the renewing of our minds. So because from a spiritual perspective, we're renewed, our minds are renewed, we're not conformed to this world. Not to say that you don't care, but that you don't focus on what's going on in the world, because in the end, the Bible speaks that this stuff was going to happen. So, from that point of view, okay. But I get his point of view too. We yet live in this world. And to not care about what's going on around you is, in all honesty, not Christian or saint-like. And I'm not talking about just policies dealing with children or whatever. I'm talking about environment and everything else. We should care about our environment. We should care about our children. We shouldn't want babies murdered every day. We shouldn't want that. I don't care if you're a Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, whatever you are. You shouldn't want that. But religion has been a two-sided coin. On one hand, religion's been the bane of human existence, and on the other hand, religion has opened up the word of Christ to millions and millions of people. And so it's like, it's just really difficult. So I understand Sean Ryan's view, and as I was listening to him as he was as he was doing the show with his spouse, and they were kind of interviewing each other, and they were being very honest and open, and of course I enjoyed that. And he was just like, look, I just couldn't take it anymore. I just can't take it. And I get it. That's why I can't watch the news anymore. It's just so depressing, so negative, that it just is not the world we grew up in. not even close. And those aren't the values that I want. I certainly don't want it for my kids. I'm not an advocate of 8-year-olds being able to get a sex change and the government coming in and telling parents they have no control over their children. That's wrong. We have, as parents, we control the lives of our children and raise them to the best of our abilities, hopefully in the right way. But that's the job of a parent, is to raise a child in the way that the child should go. From a spiritual perspective, that's a biblical viewpoint. But just from a very common sense viewpoint, we try to raise our children the best way we can into having morals and values and common sense. Well, the world's not allowing parents to do that. In fact, the world is taking away parenting and the government is taking over. Well, that's wrong. You're not paying the bills. You're not the one raising them. You're not the one buying their clothes. You're not the one breastfeeding them. You're not the one doing all these things. Nursing them back to health when they get sick. The government's not doing that. The government don't care. But now all of a sudden the government wants to give minors a choice. They don't have a choice. That's why they're minors. We as adults are supposed to know better and to be able to make right decisions for them until they become 18 or go into the military at 17 and go out on their own. We're responsible for them. They're under our insurance. They're under our policy. They're under our roof. It's two different worlds. And it's becoming so different and so separate that it's going to come to a head. It's going to come to a point where, just like Black Lives Matter, which was the absolute scam of the year, absolute scam. They took advantage of people. They pulled on heartstrings. They pulled on quote unquote white guilt, which I never had any white guilt. But a lot of people did. They pulled on all these things so that people would give them money, and they didn't use none of that money to really help black people in the inner cities that really need it. They didn't do nothing, absolutely nothing for black people whatsoever. They put it in their own pockets. I believe they declared bankruptcy, or they literally just fell apart. It was the biggest scam ever. One of the biggest scams ever. Literally, it was a scam. And unfortunately, they'll never get in trouble for what they did. Nothing will ever happen to them. Because it's two different worlds. And in two different worlds, that means you have a double standard. What me and you would get in trouble or arrested for, they won't. So the people in Black Lives Matter can embezzle millions of dollars, buy homes and give it to their family members and do all these things and not get in trouble. But if we were to do that, we'd be sent to federal prison. So again, this is the two different worlds I'm talking about. These are the two different worlds that we live in. There's the shrinking world of common sense and values and morals, and then there's the world that's presented by the media, the world that's presented by liberals, the leftists, anarchists, the LGBTQ community, the whole 9 yards. There's that world. And again, I don't have a problem. If you want to live wherever way you want to live, then live it. Go do your thing. But don't push it on me. Don't get the government involved and then the government is pushing it on me. That's not right and that's wrong. You're taking my freedoms away so that you can have freedom. That's not freedom. That's not freedom. You gaining freedom through taking away my freedom is not freedom. You're no better than the slaveholders of slavery times, because you're making me a slave of your point of view, of what you feel should be policy. And if we don't come into line, then we will suffer the consequences. That's not freedom. That's dictatorship. That's slavery. That's socialism. That's not what this country is about. Yet again, you can live whatever way you want to live. I don't care if you like to dress up as an animal and walk around the city. I don't care. Do your thing. But when you start forcing others to have to agree with what you do, or to make what you do mainstream or whatever, you're wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. So what the government of California is trying to do is to try to make sex with minors a lifestyle. A lifestyle, like being gay, like being whatever. They're trying to make it a lifestyle, and they're trying to make it legal so that adults can have sex with whomever they want, no matter what their age is. That's where it's going. And you don't have to like it. I don't care. Again, all this is my opinion and my viewpoint. You don't have to like it. But that's what's coming. And if you care anything about children, you shouldn't want to see it either. There should be a point in this world where when the government starts allowing things to happen to children that shouldn't happen to children, you should think twice about what's going on. That should be an absolute red line. It's a red line in prison. When pedophiles go into prison, they have to separate them from the general population, because even murderers don't like pedophiles. Even murderers have a line they don't cross. That should be a line we don't even think about. But yet here we are. California, Wisconsin, Minnesota, more states are coming. Colorado. This is coming. But yet, we the people aren't doing anything about it, because we're too worried about ourselves. I'm speaking about church folk too. Because some of these church folk are voting for this stuff. We have church folk that are living that LGBTQ lifestyle. We have church folk that are pedophiles. So we're just as guilty. The Bible says, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. That means we need to renew our minds. All of us got issues. All of us got problems. But to make the world a better place, we have to renew our minds in Christ so that we can live in a better world, and so that we don't conform ourselves to idiocy and stupidity and craziness. Two different worlds. We live in two different worlds. Sean Ryan, on his latest show, the one he just put out, just put it all on the line, exactly how he felt about it. And I get it. And probably a lot of people feel that way. And it's hard not to care. It's a double standard. We live in two different worlds. It's a double standard. And our society needs to do something about it. Because if we don't, it's only going to get worse. Protect your children at all costs. Protect your children at all costs. If you got to bar them from going on social media, by all means, please do it. Parents need to protect their children. And those pedophiles are online. They're on Instagram. They're on Facebook. They're everywhere. Protect your children at all costs. We live in two different worlds where one person does a crime and they're trying to put him in prison, but another person does the same crime but is in a different political party and gets away with it. Slap on the wrist. We live in two different worlds. It's craziness. What's bad is good and what good is bad. The Bible talks about this. If you're any type of a Christian or saint, you knew this was coming. If you've read any part of Revelation, you knew this was coming. You hope it wasn't in your lifetime, but it's here. And what are we as Christians and saints doing about it? Absolutely nothing. As a body, there are individuals doing something, of course. There are individuals praying. There are individuals interceding. As a body, we're doing absolutely nothing. Why? Because we're divided ourselves. We have Christians and saints that are voting for these people, that are doing this stuff in office. They're voting for these people. They're voting for these people. And they don't want to take accountability for it. They don't want to say, you know what, I made a mistake. Nope. Because they're more, party is more important than God. I'm going to say it right there. Party is more important than God. And that's on both sides, left and right. I belong to the black church. I'm telling you now, political parties are more important than God to a lot of people, especially in leadership. That's wrong. That is wrong. I am a firm advocate of keeping politics out of church, period. I don't care what side you're on. Church is for people to be encouraged, to get the word, to be delivered, to give their lives to Christ. That's what church is about. Not to spew your political opinions or somebody else's. That doesn't belong in the church. I understand during slavery and civil rights and Jim Crow and all that, churches were meeting places, and so they were the only places you could meet. So everything was done in the church. That's not the case anymore. Keep church church. Keep your stupid, silly politics, or just politics in general, out of the church. I don't want to hear it. And I have even made it clear to my pastor I don't want to hear it. You can say whatever you want in social media, but when you speak about it over the pulpit, we're going to start having problems. I didn't come here for that. I could have stayed home. I commute to church. I could have stayed home. I don't go to church for that. Keep your opinions to yourself. We live in two different worlds. Protect your children at all costs. Even if you have adult children like me, protect your children at all costs. Even though they now can make their own decisions, protect your children at all costs. They carry that last name, that's your last name, and they're our future. Protect them at all costs. Fight for what you know is right. Stand for what you know is right. Don't let anybody tell you different. Stand up for what's right. Stand up for what's moral. Stand up for common sense. Stand up for God. Good gracious. But stand for something. Because too many of us are falling for everything, and now we're in a state that we're in now. Passing laws about adults being able to have sex with children. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Pedophilias are the worst of the worst. And yet, they're everywhere. And the law's not doing anything about it. Or very little about it, depending on where you're at in the United States. Protect your children. Protect yourself. Stand up for what's right. We know there's two different worlds. It's obvious. Stand up for what's right. Don't get caught up in the two different worlds. We know they're two different worlds. Focus on what you have to do for you and your family. Now, I'm not saying don't care about what's going on around you, but don't get caught up in it. Focus on taking care of you and your family first. Then stand up for what's right. Proclaim that I am not going to go with that, and it's wrong. And get others to join you. We have to. It's not even about the country. It's just about just society in general. The species in general. Two different worlds we live in. And unfortunately, one is shrinking and the other one is growing. And we got to be aware. We got to know what's going on. And we got to stand up for what's right. That's all I had to say. I thank you for, again, listening. I thank you for subscribing. Please like these videos. It helps the algorithm. You hear this from everybody. It is absolutely true. Leave a comment down below. Hit that notification bell. I really appreciate all my few subscribers that I have. I appreciate all the views that I'm getting. I thank you very much. I try to put out as much as I can. And so I pray you get something out of this. I pray that this gets you to think. And again, these are my viewpoints. I'm not trying to speak for anybody else. This is me. So, that's it. So, until the next time, y'all, God bless you.